Hello, and welcome to What's Doing. Advertising works by creating messages that promote products, services, or ideas to a target audience. Media companies like GroupM play a pivotal role in this process as they provide advertisers and brands with insightful data-led high-value customer segments that would be potential source of their business growth and the platforms and channels to reach these segments most effectively and efficiently. Whether it's through traditional mediums like television, out of home, radio, newspapers and magazines, or digital platforms like websites, social media, and streaming services, media companies offer diverse avenues for advertisers to showcase their messages. Media companies generate revenue by consulting brands on how to amplify their reach and influence. Leading GroupM Malaysia as the CEO is Chanchal Chakrabarty, also known as CC. He brings a wealth of experience and expertise to his leadership role as he has spent a considerable amount of time in his career in Malaysia and knows the market from ground up. With a keen understanding of the Malaysian media landscape and a passion for driving innovation, CC spearheads the company's operations with a focus on delivering exceptional results for their clients. Under his guidance, GroupM Malaysia continues to thrive as a leading media investment company, leveraging cutting-edge technologies and strategic insights to navigate the dynamic market environment. CC's visionary leadership and commitment to excellence have earned him respect within the industry, positioning GroupM Malaysia as a trusted partner for brands seeking to maximize their advertising impact in Malaysia. His dedication to fostering talent management and nurturing a culture of creativity and collaboration further solidifies GroupM Malaysia's position as a powerhouse in the Malaysian advertising industry under his leadership. Welcome, Chanchal, to What's Doing. Thank you so much for taking time out and coming to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me here.
So, Chanchal, tell me, what is GroupM's overview in Malaysia in comparison to other countries GroupM is operating in at this point of time?
See, GroupM is a global organization, right? So it won't be dramatically different by market. And then we are into media investment, right? So it's the only thing that would come in would be that building in the market nuances, right? So otherwise, I mean, for example, compared to other markets, because Malaysia has, I would say, a few advantages, right? One, it's relatively a smaller market. Yeah, so it could be a market where you can do a lot of tests, new product tests or new solutions tests. The other advantage that Malaysia provides is the multiculturalism, right? So diversity is there. So you can also, that also gives a bit of an advantage to Malaysia compared to relatively more homogeneous markets, which are like, for example, even China. It might be large market, but it's largely homogeneous, right? Whereas Malaysia, even though small, is not so, and therefore it provides a bit of a leverage for testing out new solutions and stuff like that. So I think that's I would say the bigger difference. The other difference would be that again, we have been around for quite some time now, and then even through various governments and all, they have found our insights and advice quite useful. So that is another difference, which most of the other markets don't do. But we do work pretty closely with even government organizations and provide insights, provide ideas and consumer insights, landscape, how to move and stuff like that. So that's, I would say, sort of a differentiator, if you may say so. Yeah.
So, I mean, what is the current state of advertising in Malaysia at this point of time where content is concerned? And also, what do you see, how is moving towards the future?
So again, I mean, I've been in Malaysia now for, off and on, but more than 20 years, right? 22 years. I have always found the Malaysian media industry quite unique. So if we go back, you would remember that while television was the lead platform across majority of markets, in Malaysia it was print. Yeah, so which was very unique of Malaysia, where print was the largest advertising platform. And Star was, in its heydays, the single largest platform in terms of advertising spends, the share that they used to enjoy. So that's unique of Malaysia. Then even I think from a content perspective, right? We started on the journey of creating branded content for the clients and all, way ahead of many markets. They were not even in that space then. Then the other interesting aspect of Malaysia, what we saw was that Malaysia, as you all know, that it's sort of advanced digitally pretty quickly, right? It was one of the most advanced in the market, in the region, right? When it comes to digital, but its consumer adoption, which was ahead of the curve.
Okay.
Right? It wasn't advertiser adoption. So advertisers, I would say, sort of lagged behind. And obviously our industry is linked to advertisers. So relatively speaking, our industry lagged behind as well. We as GroupM have always tried to be ahead of the curve. So we started our digital division back in 2001 because we saw that it's a huge opportunity, right? But it took a while before it could be scaled. Similarly, we started programmatic when there was no programmatic. We started our programmatic division in 2013, right? So all those things we have done, and we are continuing to do ahead of the curve. But as an industry, it takes a while to catch up, I would say, from the rest of the region. So I'll give you one simple example that even when it comes to digital advertising, right? Brand safety is, becoming extremely important, has become extremely important for quite some time, right? But in Malaysia, majority of advertisers are not concerned, right? So they don't even track the third-party tracking also because they have to pay, right? They don't even use third-party tracking, many advertisers, and large ones as well, International advertisers, of course, because that's mandated, right? They cannot avoid that. But local advertisers, many still don't get into that. So, these are very strange nuances of Malaysian industry, I would say.
That's a great insight.
Yeah.
So when the COVID-19 hit and like everybody else was getting affected, how has it changed the whole ecosystem of advertising in Malaysia after the pandemic?
I don't think that has been very different from the rest of the countries, because the biggest driver, I would say, or the biggest change that happened during pandemic, besides the work from home phenomenon, was the tipping. It was a tipping point for e-commerce.
Yep.
Right? And that happened across. So China was the only market, I would say, before that, which had achieved huge scale in commerce. But pandemic really forced other markets to sort of quickly come on board. I still remember before pandemic, we as a business were constantly reaching out to clients and asking them that we have to get onto this. But because it was like single digit share from their retail space perspective, everyone knew that they have to be on e-commerce, but it was never the highest priority, or it was never the priority. And therefore, I would say a lot of them were caught napping when pandemic struck, because they had no other choice then, and they were not ready.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that was the biggest shift, and any shift that happens is very consumer-led, right? Obviously, it happened because the consumer migrated from brick and mortar to e-commerce because of the circumstances then, right? And then the other development that happened, because it rapidly evolved, was the social commerce space. So right from social commerce, conversational commerce, live streaming commerce, and all that started happening. And while it had started happening at a much smaller scale and more of the younger audience phenomena it was, But obviously, pandemic forced the older age group also to get into that, and that has then consequently triggered the huge increase in the influencer marketing space,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
that has really changed. Yeah.
yeah. So these, I think it's all related, but these are the different legs, I would say, of what changes happen. But everything is more or less linked to commerce,
Yeah.
but different forms of commerce, I would say. Yeah.
But how have Malaysian audiences, and their interest has evolved during the last decade? And what do you think has been the driving force behind these changes?
Interest in what perspective?
Means buying habit, consuming content habit, all those habits, how it has evolved. Has it evolved? Has it
Yeah, so
changed?
as I mentioned earlier, right, that from a consumer perspective, Malaysia was one of the first markets to evolve digitally, right? And frankly speaking, I don't consider that. I mean, people say TV is dead, print is dead, radio is dead, right, or dying, right? But it's just the shift in the platform. They have all moved to digital as a enabler. That's about it, right? I mean, for example, a TV station like Media Prima or Astro might be declining in their traditional thing, but people have not stopped consuming content.
Yeah.
They are just consuming it in a different way,
Yeah.
which is OTT, right? Largely OTT or using Android boxes or whatever it is, right? I mean, that's primarily the shift. Similarly, people have not stopped following or reading or consuming news. It's just the platform which has become digitized.
Yeah.
So yeah, the newspaper, the paper part has gone. News has not gone,
gone, yeah.
right? Similarly, radio, right? Radio also the same thing. I mean, people have migrated to podcasts, Spotify, Jukes, all these kind of stuff, right? So I mean, consumption really hasn't changed. And consumption way of consuming or the mode of consuming has changed. I mean, people are still consuming. The only shift I would say is that because, for example, if I talk about mainstream content like television, right? It has moved from appointment viewing to your own time viewing.
Binge when you want to binge.
Exactly. And then people say, oh, there's so much of fragmentation and people don't have time and therefore the consumption thing has reduced, and especially the newer generation attention span is like goldfish and all that. But there is a huge contradiction there as well. That is the age group which binges the content the most.
Yep.
So where's the attention span then? They are doing it for hours together. Obviously, there's attention span.
Yep.
So it's basically the content which is become more and more important. If it is good, if it's compelling, they will binge watch. It's not that, they don't have attention and therefore they will, you have to communicate to them in 10 seconds or 5 seconds or 15 seconds. No, if it's good content, they will consume it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
People are still spending 10 hours for a series.
That's what.
At one
That's
go.
what, one go. So, I mean, that's the change, I would say. Earlier, during appointment viewing, there was no opportunity of binge watching. But if I don't know how old are you, but if I take you back
I'm
to
quite
those
old.
days, to those days, before OTTs of the world and all, we as young kids used to binge watch in India, renting VCRs.
Yeah. I've done that. I was that age, yeah.
Right? So, and we used to watch like 3-4 movies at a stretch,
Yeah.
So that binge watching was still there, but the opportunities were not there. Now the opportunities are huge and the
And
options,
unlimited.
Yeah, options are huge.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean,
So tell me one thing, that now that there are so many, media platform choices, how do you help advertisers, how do you guide them to where, through this whole complexity of platforms, how do you guide the advertisers to put in their money
it's very simple. It's very simple. It has to be purely consumer out. Right? So as long as you are clear about which consumer segments are valuable for this particular advertiser, where the source of growth will come from, and then understand their habits, right? What kind of, for example, there are things like now mushrooming opportunities of short form video as well, right? So it has been driven by the likes of TikTok, but now with reels and stories and all that, it's mushrooming, right? So obviously there is a value there as well, because I call it that there's a certain segment of consumers who like to sample first, right, and then go into the longer versions. So for example, even for your podcast, right, people might first like to sample what it is about with a short, right, and then listen to the longer version. And that's not actually that's age agnostic. It's not that the younger people have too many things to do and therefore their attention span is less and therefore they will do that. Even me at 50 plus do that. I first sample it through shorts, for example. And
even trailer for that matter.
Correct. Trailer. And for example, if I like to watch a long interview or a podcast, I would first sample it and then see, okay, whether it interests me or not. And then I will, when I'm in my morning walk, 1 hour morning walk, then I'll just listen to it, right? So, the critical thing is to follow the consumers. And then if you are completely obsessed about it and focused about it, I don't think fragmentation of media and all these things are going to really become a big barrier. On top of it, I think the biggest benefit that digital brings to the table is that you have the measurement from more accurate measurement as compared to the traditional platforms, whichever provided, right? So there it was a lot of assumptions and stuff. Here you know who you're watching and stuff like that.
So what are the biggest challenges in measuring the audience and the audience numbers, and also because the attention is so fragmented? So what are the challenges in measuring these audience numbers for each platform?
Again, Malaysia is very unique on that. This is probably one of the rare markets where even TV measurement is split. So there are two large players, and free-to-air is Media Prima and pay TV is Astro, but both have separate measurement. So there is no single source of even video measurement. And I would like to call it a video measurement now, because you are consuming videos in different platforms, right? Whether it's free-to-air or Astro or YouTube or whatever it is, right? It should be single video measurement. You don't have, right? You have Google in their walled garden measurement. Then you have Facebook in their own measurement. Then you have FTA measurement, free-to-air measurement, which is separate, and this one is separate, right? So it's quite strange from a market perspective. Split completely, because you don't understand. Then you cannot deduplicate your consumer thing, right? By viewing, and forget that each of it has a separate base, right? From a measurement perspective. So FTA is being measured by one particular research company, right? Astro is being measured by another research company. Their sample bases are different. Their sample sizes are different. Statisticians might say that it is statistically significant, but the reality is that, say, for example, free-to-air for a 32 million population country has a sample size of it used to have 1,100. Now they have sort of moved it up, right? Similarly, Astro, 70% of the population, according to Astro's thing, are Astro homes. But even though they were much better, but they were also around 4,000 homes, right? So statistically significant, but a lot of assumptions therefore, right? And especially in today's day and age, when the content proliferation is huge, I think it is a lot of assumptions, right? Okay. Because every household might have each member having a very different consumption habit.
And also they have different outlets also of consuming content.
Correct. Different different devices that they're using to consume, right? Family viewing has really declined, right?
Yeah.
So
Everybody is an individual viewer now.
Yeah.
So and not everybody will be liking the same content.
exactly.
Everybody is
So,
good watching in the family.
And therefore the sample becomes pretty thing, and that's where digital comes into play, and because they are talking about the individuals, their habits, right? So obviously they get the advantage out of that. Then, I mean, there are other platforms also. I mean, the fastest growing platform, maybe you will be surprised today, is out of home.
What is it?
Yeah.
As in your billboards and stuff.
Yeah. So, and especially the digital out of home. Yeah, the digital screens.
Yeah.
Post pandemic, I mean, they had also gone down to base zero during pandemic, but post pandemic, they have by far surpassed even digital growth, because digital growth has been there for quite many years, right? So it has now sort of normalized, right? It's still growing, digital is still growing, but it's normalized. But out of home is the fastest growing platform, but no measurement, right? And again, there are pockets of measurement there, but it's again a lot of assumptions there as well. So there is no measurement like how you measure digital, which is.
So how does, what kind of innovative technologies GroupM is implementing or bringing on in the market, where you can, very
with the
clearly,
measurement.
you can clearly measure the market.
Correct. So I think one of the biggest developments that is helping this space is obviously AI, right? So we have invested in creating a lot of AI tools, right? Right from in programmatic to even to the extent of measuring TV and out of home, right? So we have our own investment in such tools. So for example, we have what we like to call it advanced or addressable TV and addressable out of home products, right? Solutions, where we have partnered as well as built our own methods of being more specific in terms of measurement. So for example, addressable TV. Addressable TV is something which goes down to measuring till postcode level.
Oh.
So typically TV means national, right? So a lot of wastage for many kinds of advertisers. So for example, if say SK2, a very premium product, doesn't even get distributed across the nation, right? What's the point of advertising across the nation, right? But in addressable solution, TV solution, we can target down to postcode level. So I can advertise for a particular brand only say in
Klang Valley.
Forget Klang Valley, Damansara, Mont Kiara, postcode level.
Oh, lovely.
Right? So that's
that precise.
That precise. So it's, you can say television with a with a sharp targeting capability like digital. Because digital you can, right?
Yeah.
Same, right? Similarly for out of home also, we have built our own partnerships and measurement where we can, especially digital screens, of course not static screens, but digital screens we can measure and measure down to even, I mean, again, there'll be assumptions built into that, but measured even to that if you're advertising in the screen, say a screen in the space somewhere near a Shell station, right? And then we can even measure that how the messaging, depending on the messaging, how much footfall it is driving to a Shell station, right? Same for your QSR stores, we can do that. So to that extent also we can attribute, that footfall can be attributed, those kind of measurements. Of course, there will be a lot of assumptions built, because when you are measuring out of home, you are not really guaranteeing that that person has actually watched the ad. It's more of using device IDs who all are passing through in those and matching the timestamp. So say your communication of digital out of home is 15 seconds. So in that 15-second range, who was in that eye range of that billboard, driving past or walking past or whatever, based on their device IDs.
Wow.
So, I mean, these are the developments of measurement which are essential in today's day and age. And then, unfortunately, as a market, because these are GroupM investment, right? As a market, we unfortunately haven't evolved even for single video measurement. There has been a lot of work as an industry that we have been trying to do with the MCMC to come to a sort of single video measurement solution. We have gone ahead till the level of pitching. Vendors have come back with proposals, and it takes time, all these things, because after we have MCMC has shortlisted, it will take another 18 months to set it up, right? 12 to 18 months. So, but it's stuck at various levels for various reasons. I mean, one of the reasons would be the situation of ringgit to dollar.
Yeah.
Right? Because majority of these providers are not are external vendors, right? From UK or wherever, right? Different companies. Their proposals would be in US dollar, for example. And now with ringgit becoming 4.8, obviously the budget would be budget requirement would be much higher for Malaysia.
Yeah.
Right. So those are barriers which you cannot do anything about it. But I mean, it's quite unfortunate, I would say, that as a market we could have been, and it's not just Malaysia. You know, these issues are everywhere, right? From a measurement, traditional measurement perspective.
Yeah.
If we are able to sort of tackle this part of single video measurement, we would be the first market in the region to have done so. And we have advanced so much, but again, I mean, obviously priorities with government changing and all that.
Yeah.
Stability. So yeah. So
programmatic advertising has been a game changer and for this industry. What do you see as the next evolution in digital advertising?
The buzzword nowadays is AI.
Yeah.
Right. But AI is an enabler. Like what I mentioned about digital, right? How it has become an enabler for traditional platforms to migrate to things. Similarly, AI is also an enabler. Right? So it will make it more effective, more efficient by using AI tools. And we have been doing that. AI is not something very new. It's been there for quite some time in different shape and size, right? So for example, for programmatic, we had built a AI ML enabled tool called Copilot, which was, because see, a programmatic, the idea is that it's taking away the human aspect of identifying which are the best places to advertise, right? And because digital has so many opportunities or options or platforms, it's humanly not possible to get the best. That's where AI comes into play and identifies the best places where you can reach out to the audience, right? Or you can target the audience. So that was, again, enabling part of AI. Now it is moving to a lot of content as well, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the most popular AI linked content was the Cadbury's Shah Rukh Khan.
Yes.
So, I would say that moving forward, AI would be a huge enabler and it would continue to expand. It's already doing into making the cost barriers more affordable. So, for example, again, all these tests would happen first in larger markets, right? Because you need the investment to create stuff. So, for example, if I take China and India in APAC are the largest advertising markets as well as tech markets. So, if I look at China, they have already started doing a lot of AI-enabled work on influencer social commerce. Right. So what they're doing is right from scripting to production to the AI version of the influencers.
Yeah.
Right.
They're so real.
Exactly. So they're very real and it's live commerce. There is no, cost barriers going down because all the scripting and production is now taken care of by AI. Right. And talent is available 24/7 because the AI version. So, I mean, that's a huge advantage, right? When, say, a double day happens, it's 24/7, right?
Yeah.
During that time, it's not possible humanly for an influencer to do that 24/7 for, say, 2 days,
Yeah.
right? But for the AI version,
Goes on and on and
absolutely, right?
Yeah.
So that's one big thing. Then again, India has many examples in that space. The biggest one was the Shah Rukh Khan one. But then Oreo did, for example, with Farhan Akhtar, which was a voice AI-enabled stuff, right? The other big area, I think, where AI is enabling is the SMEs, right? So, for example, Amazon, Flipkart, they are enabling the SMEs through a lot of listing, which is all AI enabled. So creating their catalogs and enabling their listing down to the smallest of shops, right? Then there are AI versions of, for example, the Shah Rukh Khan thing. Even a shopkeeper is able to create their own ads now,
Yeah.
right? And you can create your own ad. ITC did this whole big thing there, where you can create your own ad with a celebrity, right? On your mobile, right? Similarly, a shopkeeper can create their own Diwali ads with a cricketer. And the biggest benefit there is for a diverse country like India, as well as for Malaysia, you can do it in micro communities. So, by language, vernaculars, right? So, those are huge benefit. Otherwise, just imagine the cost that would be required if you want to do it otherwise, right? So, I think AI would really is revolutionizing that space through creating these solutions.
That's quite an eye opener, actually. But having said that, because there's a lot of data involved here, right? So, what are the concerns about this whole data and privacy protection?
It is. I mean, very good question here, because it's exactly a follow up to that. There are certain markets. I mean, again, China, India are relatively okay in that space, but more on the Western markets as well as Australia, New Zealand. They are taking lead when it comes to
Data protection.
Data protection, as well as, for example, AI-linked risks. So Australia is taking charge in terms of taking lead in terms of creating controls and laws for that, because again, misinformation, deep fakes, right, which are so easily and seamlessly done through AI. How to control those? There are concerns like big advertisers also, right? Because AI is democratizing things, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just taking names here to give an example. A Unilever could be very concerned that their data can be used to create communication or ads by PNG. And it would be much more, therefore, well targeted and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, for other categories, right? A Petronas can use Shell data and target their consumers by creating very customized, personalized communication for Shell consumers to move to Petronas. So these are areas which are, again, a big concern. Other area is the democratizing part, right? So because AI is democratizing, how would you really differentiate between a high value advertising creation versus something created by generative AI, right? It is bringing everything to one
level.
Yeah. So I would think it positive. Think it from a positive spin, that's where the human angle will come in.
But how will it impact the advertising industry in the coming years?
Yeah. So, for example, a lot of work which are sort of on a common base kind of a thing can be done through generative AI, right? So, for example, content creation can be done through generative AI.
Don't say that.
Right?
We'll be out of business.
Correct. But that would be relatively a lower value stuff.
Okay.
Right? Or where you have to scale. best example is the Shah Rukh Khan thing, right? Or the Farhan Akhtar thing. You cannot use Shah Rukh Khan and shoot him in different languages for thousands of shopkeepers,
Yes.
right? So how do you scale? You are still, the idea is coming from human beings, right?
Yeah.
It's still from the agency or the creative director or whoever, right?
Yeah.
And then technology is enabling it to scale it and personalize it to the micro community level.
Have you done anything like that, like the Shah Rukh Khan ad for Cadbury's? Have you done anything like that in Malaysia as such?
Not yet. Not yet.
That'll be so cool,
See, I think there are a lot of opportunities to do it because of the fact that it reduces the cost barriers. And for a relatively smaller market like Malaysia, cost is important, right? So definitely, I think there is huge opportunity. And also, as I mentioned in the beginning, Malaysia is also a diverse market.
Yeah.
So you can personalize your communication to micro communities by using AI.
So now that the consumers are so, socially connected, they're concerned about social issues and sustainability. How is it affecting the advertising market? How is it, how are you, you're telling the advertisers how to come on board because the consumers are more aware about these issues?
I think there are two levels to it, right? One is, what do you call it, necessary part for any corporation now, any global or listed company to sort of follow the norms, right? So everyone has their net zero targets, when they need to achieve it and stuff like that. And that's become an essential element, right? And it's being tracked by the analysts and all. And then if you don't hit, obviously it impacts your share prices and your profile in the industry. That's one part of it, right? The other part is how much you are really doing stuff for. One is you are doing it for the
Once
market.
you're for basically putting it out in the market and really doing it. Yeah.
Correct, right? And frankly speaking, as you rightly said, consumers are becoming way more aware of this, right? And especially the younger population, Gen Zs and all, right? They are very, very conscious about these things. And if, as the term says, if you are into greenwashing, right, and you're not really doing stuff, they will, sooner or later, they come to know about it and they just don't use your product.
So because the loyalty factor is not there. So if you are on board of their, what they think and what they follow, you will have a consumer for the longer period of time.
Absolutely. So it is actually a growth driver for companies. Should look at it as a growth driver, because for certain consumer segments, you are not in their consideration set if you are not doing anything about it, about sustainability and thing, right? From our industry perspective, we have taken a slightly broader approach as well. As GroupM, our objective is advertising made better for the consumers and the advertisers as well, right? So the whole thinking beyond on that is the responsible aspect of it. So it starts from not just sustainability, but even responsible journalism, right? So where all these fake news and misinformation comes, right? Then working with partners who are or who have started or are starting to move on the sustainability path. I don't know whether you are aware or not, but digital, while it's so big and getting bigger, is hugely carbon emitting.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do we therefore work on that aspect, right? So for example, using formats for advertising or using platforms which are digital platforms and digital formats which are relatively lower carbon emission. So I mean, one simple example would be a relatively small digital campaign, say of 5 million impressions. Can you guess how much carbon emission happens? It's equivalent to a Melbourne-London flight.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So therefore, it becomes, it's our responsibility to start working with the partners to ensure that the formats that we are using, the platforms are made more carbon efficient. We cannot completely get away with that, right? It would be there, but how do you optimize it to make sure that it reduces the emissions, right? And then any besides that, then it comes to net zero, right? So what you are doing to compensate for it, right? It's largely more of compensation and optimizing the platforms to reduce emissions. So that's the approach that we have taken, besides the fact of responsible journalism and
So, what kind of advice will you give to the advertisers and content creators, to stay relevant and effective in the rapidly changing media landscape?
as I said earlier, be consumer obsessed, right? Uh, if you are very clear about who your consumer is and what they want, I think it's very simple. But people tend to overcomplicate things, and it started becoming more complicated with the availability of huge amounts of data, right? Because then people started sort of over analyzing stuff, right? But now with cookie deprecation coming in, when you will not have as much data, and you'll have to depend on first party data and some second party data partnerships through clean rooms and all. I think you will have to be more consumer obsessed in terms of understanding them, rather than just reading data points and over analyzing it. If you're obsessed with that, I'm sure as a content creator also, you'll know what content
Yeah.
will appeal to them more. Yeah, what is trending, what is the upcoming trend, right? Those things. And then advertisers have to follow the same thing, right? From a trend perspective, everyone knows that in one of the fastest evolving, say, categories for advertisers is cosmetics, right?
Yeah.
Skincare, cosmetics. And that's a space where constantly there trend spotting becomes very important, right? So pulse of the consumer is extremely important. Keeping your ear close to the ground and see what's happening and acting on that.
So, how should brands, who are into content creation and and distribution, should be engaging with the modern digitally savvy consumer?
I think there could be different ways of doing that depending on what you want to achieve. So as I mentioned earlier, if it is commerce related, we know that the digitally savvy consumers of today, especially Gen Zs and all these, they are more inclined towards following influencers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not celebrity influencers,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's the nanos and the micros.
Exactly.
Right? So I think it's important to understand that aspect, and therefore moving into those spaces. And it's not just influencers now. You can even go to what they call now key consumer opinion makers, right? So they are consumers of your products who would be much better placed to talk about your
Like the mommies group and like the
correct.
teachers and
Yeah.
students.
Yeah. Right. So that becomes very important, rather than everything done by celebrities. I don't think yes, they will still have a play. For example, in a Malaysian context, the K-pop stars are popular, and they will give you the appeal and popularity from a top line perspective, right? So awareness perspective. Quickly, it will help you into the minds of the young consumers. But they have so many options. Therefore, awareness is not enough, right? You need to be in the consideration set to begin with. And that's where these consumer opinions, ratings and reviews, because they are savvy consumers. They just don't purchase for the sake of purchasing, right? They will go through ratings and reviews. They will talk to their friends, the peer group opinions and the consumer opinions and stuff like that. And that's how the nano and micros also come into play, right?
So, what are the biggest opportunities and challenges for the advertising industry in Malaysia over the next 5 years? What do you think?
See, I think social commerce and live commerce has still not become very large in Malaysia yet. There are certain categories, right? Some, for example, beauty category, which have started doing it, but other markets are way ahead from that perspective. And interestingly, Malaysia somehow post-pandemic also sort of started plateauing when it came to commerce, right? In fact, many people started going back to brick and mortar because the touch and feel matters to them, right? So therefore, understanding which segment is doing what and working on that. So one, I clearly see the commerce space booming in different forms. So whether it's social commerce, live streaming commerce, content, entertainment commerce, and all these things will happen. I think there's still a lot of headroom in the influencer space, right? And then again, when I say influencer, it's not the celebrity influencer, it's the and then that space obviously requires to be regulated because it's right now all over the place, very disorganized and things. So that needs to be. It would help if it gets more regulated, because then it will be easier for brands to sort of decide which segment of micros or nanos or macros to target for what kind of products. I think and as I mentioned, AI is going to be enabler in various aspects of it, and especially it more so for a relatively smaller market, because it would optimize things for the market, it would reduce the cost barriers, and that would help in terms of developing all these spaces at a much faster speed.
So, what do you think GroupM is, how it is innovating the advertising space to be relevant 5 years down the line?
So, as I mentioned earlier, right, we have always tried and sort of invested to be ahead of the curve from the industry. And I gave example of we started digital way before digital started. We started programmatic 12 years ago, way before programmatic ecosystem started. Then now, as I mentioned, we have invested in the addressable television space, then addressable out-of-home space. We have invested behind your measurement, various measurement aspects. For influencers, we have invested in creating a AI tech platform, which helps us in terms of sort of getting this huge chunk of, it's a massively growing space, right? So thousands of influencers, and then bucketing them into how the advertisers can leverage on that better. So,
and also which will be relevant to which brand.
That's what I mean by category. Then within the category, you can identify whose content is getting better traction, right? Amongst which particular segment audience. Then, obviously you take away the competitor KOLs from there, so you can identify those. Then, very importantly, there are loads and loads of fake followers.
Yep.
So how you can weed them out and identify who are the influencers with genuine followers. So all that aspect, we are again investing there. We have invested there, and we have a AI-enabled tech platform for that, right? Then, as I mentioned, we are constantly investing behind different AI tools, both for internal as well as for enabling our clients in terms of how to do better. So, in fact, I don't know if you ever get opportunity, you should go to this space called WPP Open.
Okay.
Yeah, where you will get all AI-enabled stuff that you can do. You can create actually videos.
Oh, really?
Right.
Oh, okay.
It's all about generative AI right now, right?
Yeah.
So it is garbage in, garbage out, right? So the better queries that you provide to generative AI, the better output you will get.
Like the Sora, the new Sora and stuff.
Correct, right.
Okay. So that brings into the last question, Chanchal, that You have been in the space and you sample and you watch a lot of content. What were the 5 best content pieces you watched last year?
That's a tough one, yeah. Because I really don't get much time to watch. But when you say content,
Yeah, it can be anything. Means from podcast to television series to film, because
I mean, frankly speaking, as I mentioned, I don't really get much time to watch a lot of content, unfortunately. I really used to love watching movies, but I don't get much time now. But if I have to point out specifically, then I think I really liked Oppenheimer.
okay,
Right, that was one of my last year's one of my favorites. One of the recent one is I always forget the name. One is of course one of the very recent ones on Prime called Poacher.
yeah, oh yeah, Push is quite nice.
Yeah, so Poacher I really like. Then one of the I can't pronounce it actually. It's a Korean name. I really liked it on Netflix.
Warrior.
No. Gyeongseong Creatures.
Okay.
Gyeongseong Creatures. It was really good,
Okay.
because it is it's a story around 1945, yeah, where people are very self-obsessed, right?
Yeah.
They're concerned only about themselves, and then they encounter a creature which has been created through human greed.
Wow.
So it's a bit different.
Very the fantasy, sci-fi.
I mean, you can call it sci-fi, but I found it very philosophical as well,
Okay.
right? And I found it very, very interesting concept as a concept. I don't know whether you should try and watch it. I'm 100% sure as a content creator, you'd like it.
Definitely. So that brings it to the end of the show. Thank you so much, Chanchal, for coming onto the show. It was greatly insightful of what all you talked about. And we're looking forward for GroupM to create some more magic with the advertisers as well as into the content space. And we wish you all the best in the coming days. And thank you so much again for coming to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me here. And as I mentioned during our pre-podcast conversation, Malaysian content industry is right now pivoted at a very interesting juncture with the Malaysian box office booming, right? And we are definitely into that space now. We are into co-funding into movies and all because we see that space, interestingly, growing a lot. Post-pandemic, again, it's a clear trend that we see. And then first time we are seeing Malaysian content going into Taiwan and China box office, and also, I mean, the exportability of the content and all. So I have a lot of confidence that this space will really grow rapidly.
Great. We wish you all the best and thank you once again for coming onto the show.
All the best to you as well. Thank you.
Advertising and content advertising is here to stay. And GroupM Malaysia, under CC's leadership, is ready for all the challenges the advertising industry is going through and will be going through in the future to create more brand awareness for the advertisers and revenue for the brands in Malaysia. Stew on this till we meet in the next episode of What's Stewing.